you're out there. You're listening. You're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see the future. I'm not here to tell you how this is going to end. I'm here to tell you how this is going to begin. I'm going to start this broadcast, and when I do, I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without controls and boundaries. A world where anything is possible.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. I spend a great deal of time on this channel discussing what I believe to be the two biggest roadblocks, the two biggest inhibitants preventing Americans from achieving true freedom, true individual liberty, economic prosperity, and the American dream. The first is the American education system, which is actually the American indoctrination system. We put our kids into public schools for 15, 18, 20 years and allow the government to form the very vulnerable young minds that are our children. And this is why we see such an overwhelming percentage of young people graduating high school and becoming social justice warriors. Because we give the government our children. And of course, the second greatest threat is the centralization, the American corporate mainstream media. And unfortunately, I spend so much time combating the false narratives of the mainstream media. Knock down this fake news, debunk this bit of propaganda, that I don't have as much time as I would like. I don't spend as much time as I would like putting together detailed reports that show just how corrupt the corporate mainstream media is. Well, this week, Deadspin actually did a pretty good job of that. They put together a video compilaton of 15 news reporters from local stations all over the country that were reading the same exact script. And the video, it's very creepy when you watch it because they put all 15 reporters reading the same script and they just overlapped it, so it was an echo. And the script was actually talking about how fake news is a danger to our democracy. Now, normally the mainstream media wouldn't even report on something like this. But local news stations in America, in large part, are actually controlled by the Sinclair Broadcasting Group, which is conservative media. I'm not too familiar with them, but the mainstream media claims them to be pro-Trump. I have my doubts, but okay. But Sinclair Group is generally a conservative media group. So the mainstream media jumped all over this. This was their opportunity to switch the narrative. They said, see, the media in America is actually conservative. The media in America is actually pro-Trump. And Sinclair Group, which reaches 39% of American households, millions of people, is actually predominant in the part of the country that voted for Trump. So you see, anyone who voted for Trump is completely propagandized. They don't think for themselves, and that's the reason Trump won. And this was a great triumph for the mainstream media to show that they're in the right and that anything that is conservative, anything that is pro-Trump is wrong. Now, alternative media, conservative media was quick to point out the hypocrisy of the mainstream media, attack the mainstream media, and come to the defense of the Sinclair Group. Well, the truth is that, and I hate to give them a nod, but the corporate media, the mainstream media, was actually right in pointing out that the Sinclair Group, reaching 39% of American households, is actually a threat to our democracy. Reading off corporate scripted, mandated, fake, or maybe not fake lines, but corporate mandated scripts, and not doing actual journalism and the reporters speaking what's on their mind, doing their own investigations, and speaking what they believe to be the truth. Of course, that's a threat to our democracy. So the mainstream media is right. They've been vindicated. They're not the propagandist. the conservative media in America handles all of the propaganda. Wrong. Just because Sinclair is a threat to our democracy, which they are, does not absolve the mainstream media from the endless amount of propaganda and bullshit that they like to spew on a daily basis. There has never been a war that the mainstream media wasn't in favor of. Do you remember when CNN told you that it's illegal for you to read the WikiLeaks, but don't worry, they'll read the WikiLeaks and tell you about it? Well, this presented an opportunity. And for the last couple of days, I have been engaged in very deep research. And this week, I am going to release a report that I beg you to watch because I'm so excited about it. That is going to take you down the rabbit hole to show just how corrupt, just how centralized and controlled the American mainstream media actually is. And you are going to be shocked. I mean, people think it's bad, but they don't realize just how bad it is. And I'm not only going to report on media consolidation, the 6 corporations that control 90% of the mainstream media. Choice is an illusion. But I'm going to show you in this report in great detail how the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, and the Trilateral Commission, these big corporate government think tanks, have infiltrated and have complete control of the entire compass of the American mainstream media. This report is going to be damning, and it is going to completely destroy, it is going to eviscerate the mainstream media. I don't know exactly when I'll be releasing it. It could be tomorrow, I doubt it. Could be the next day. Might take till Friday or Saturday. But I implore you, I am going to release this report this week on the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commissions, and the corporate American mainstream media, and you are going to be shocked by just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Speaking of the American mainstream media, have you noticed that the only time the mainstream media is in agreement with President Trump is when President Trump is potentially launching America into another war? CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS has spent most of Donald Trump's presidency bashing him. I believe studies have shown that 90% of the coverage around Trump has been negative toward Trump. And the only time I could think of the mainstream media actually backing what Trump has done is following the first alleged chemical weapons attack in Syria. The mainstream media served as great cheerleaders for President Trump in April of 2017, when following that alleged chemical weapons attack by the government of Syria against women and children, President Trump launched 55 Tomahawk missiles into Syria. At the time, it looked like an act that might have led to a full-scale escalation of war with the objective of regime change in Syria. And the mainstream media cheered this on, and it was a complete 180. They went from their constant Trump bashing to, if Trump doesn't do this, he's weak. Trump needs to launch missiles into Syria. We need a full-scale ground invasion. The mainstream media was completely behind Trump. And again, my report is going to greatly detail why that is and just how much control the military-industrial complex has over the mainstream media as well as the American government as a whole. But luckily, Trump launched 55 Tomahawk missiles into Syria at an Air Force base. No one even died, and that was it. Maybe Trump actually realized it was probably a false flag, wanted to look strong, and that was his way of saying, okay, I did something, but we're not going to try to overthrow Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And then, of course, last week, President Trump announces that we were on the verge of pulling our troops out of Syria. I was ready to declare victory. This was a vote for Trump vindicated. This was going to be his greatest moment as president. Pulling American troops out of Syria, pulling American troops out of the Middle East, something Obama said he would do, but then he spent 8 years dropping a bomb on average every 20 minutes in the Middle East, claiming to be a friend of Muslims as he dropped bombs on Muslims, and his supporters calling me Islamophobic for not wanting unchecked immigration, but not as they don't speak up about Barack Obama dropping a bomb on Muslims every 20 minutes for 8 years. But Trump was going to change that. He said he was about on the verge of pulling American troops out of the Middle East. I'm ready to declare victory. And then I wake up on Sunday morning and the mainstream media, there has been a chemical weapons attack in Syria. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, Bashar al-Assad, Putin, they are going to pay for this chemical weapons attack. But of course, the chemical weapons attack didn't make any sense. If you were Bashar al-Assad, if you were fighting for your survival, trying to fight off the West, trying to fight off the most powerful, feared military in the world, the United States of America has occupied your country, and you have held them off, and then the President of the United States of America announces that he is on the verge of pulling his military out of your country, you are going to win. Hold off the United States of America. And would your response to that be to launch a chemical weapons attack against women and children with no military objective 1 week after that announcement, and make sure there's enough evidence for the world to see to ensure that the American military doesn't leave, that they stay in your country and possibly pursue regime change, which will end with your death, as it did for Saddam Hussein in Iraq? Does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't. But Trump nonetheless released his tweet, and now the mainstream media again, of course, is backing that action. Well, let me ask you this. Even if we take the media at face value, even if Bashar al-Assad did use chemical weapons on women and children in Syria, which I have strong doubts about, and the mainstream media has done nothing to prove, should America pursue a full-scale war, pursue regime change, and then engage in nation building in Syria because they've committed human rights violations? North Korea commits human rights violations. Does that mean we should also launch an invasion into North Korea? Does that mean we should put our troops on the ground there? That we should attempt to overthrow their government, kill Kim Jong-un, destroy their nation with bombs, and then spend American money, American lives rebuilding North Korea? Venezuela commits human rights violations. Should we also send troops into Venezuela, take out their government, engage in regime change, and then spend how many years rebuilding the nation of Venezuela? Saudi Arabia, who we love to sell weapons to, who we're helping them fight a proxy war in Yemen, which who knows how many innocent women and children, Muslim innocent women and children, are being killed in Yemen. Should we go to war with Saudi Arabia because they commit human rights violations? In fact, most countries in the Middle East do, because any country that adheres to Sharia law violates the liberty of all women, all gay people. They get murdered in these countries. So should we go to war, overthrow all of these regimes, costing America how much money in taxes, how much money in debt, how many soldiers, how many American lives, at what cost? In what way do the people of the United States of America benefit from these wars? Is pursuing regime change in Syria good for you? Is that good for the people of the United States of America? Is Syria a threat to the freedom of the people here in the USA? What threat is there? Because I would argue there's a much, much greater threat from the endless amount of war debt that we take on with these wars, right? Every bomb costs millions of dollars. Every boot costs money. Transportation, every tank costs money. Every helmet costs money. Every sock costs money. This is why it's a military-industrial complex. This is why war never ends. At what price are we willing to pay as the people of the United States of America to allegedly spread democracy in Syria? How has that gone in Iraq? How has that gone in Afghanistan? How much time has America spent? How much treasure has America spent in Iraq and Afghanistan? Because America invaded Afghanistan in 2001, Iraq in 2003, and we're still there. If Syria goes anything like that, would you be willing to sign on to an invasion of Syria if that meant American troops would still be in Syria in 2035? Because that's the same time frame from 2001 to 2018. You think we're pulling out of Afghanistan anytime soon? Do not buy the propaganda of the American mainstream media. They're going to sell us war because they are completely controlled by the military-industrial complex. Most of the members of the American government are completely controlled by the American military-industrial complex because corporations make billions and billions and trillions of dollars fighting these wars. So they buy off politicians, they buy off the mainstream media, and these prostitutes, these war pimps, make millions of dollars for their corporate masters. Now is the time to speak up. The mainstream media is trying to confuse you. They're telling you that Bashar al-Assad is killing women and children in Syria, yet they haven't proven that. If he is, that's terrible. First they have to prove it, but if he is, that's terrible. But even if he is, does that mean we should launch a full-scale war in Syria? Should we launch a full-scale war in North Korea? Should we launch a full-scale war in Venezuela? How long will we be there? Will we be there until 2035? How much money will it cost? America is $20 trillion in debt. Our children, our grandchildren are going to have to pay for that. There's a reason why people make more money than they did in the past but live a lower quality of life. Because endless war inflation. America is always at war. Do you know America has been at war? It's something ridiculous. Like, and you can look this up. I think it's like 88, but about 90% of the years that America has been a country, America has been at war. This is a corporate American military-industrial complex, supported by the politicians who are bought off, supported by the mainstream media, which is completely controlled by the corporate government that runs the United States of America, the oligarchy that runs the United States of America. And I'm going to show you that in great detail later this week. So please look out for my report on the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, and the American mainstream media. It will be eye-opening to you. And I'm so excited to do this report. But for now is the time to speak up. You need to put pressure on people. You need to speak with families, speak with friends. Let them know why supporting an invasion into Syria is wrong, and pressure as many people as you can to tweet your local politicians, to tweet the President of the United States that you do not support a full-scale invasion of Syria, that you do not support spending American lives and treasure, that you value the future of our children more than to take on more debt, that you value the lives of American soldiers more than to send them to war under the guise of fighting for democracy, to have their limbs blown off, to come back with post-traumatic stress, to be murdered because a veteran kills themselves 22 veterans kill themselves a day in the United States of America. This is the cost of the American military-industrial complex. This is the cost of the prostitution of the pimps in the corporate mainstream media in the government of the United States of America. There are 355 million people in America. It is not difficult for these corrupt people at the top with more money than God to find corrupt people to elevate into politics, to elevate into high, glamorous positions in the corporate mainstream media. Please, stand up against war while you can, because it's always confusing when the media is telling you why it should happen. America supported the Iraq War when we invaded, but now most Americans who are logical realize that that was a complete disaster. How many innocent Iraqis died in that war? How many innocent American soldiers were murdered as part of that war? Lost limbs, quality of life as part of that war? Have post-traumatic stress disorder as part of that war? Have committed suicide, 22 a day, because of that war? Hindsight's 2020. We could see that that's wrong. Don't you wish you spoke up then? Don't you wish you called your congressman then? This is that again. Now is the time to speak up. Now is the time where you need clarity. So let me give it to you. Please tweet your local politicians. Please tweet President Trump that you are against pursuing regime change in Syria and that you are against our troops even being in the Middle East anymore. We've been there since 2001, really before that. When are we going to get out? Are we going to be there till 2035? Maybe. If we go full-scale war with Syria. This week, I will release a report which will show you the scope of just how corrupt, just how much control the oligarchy, the government, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, and the Trilateral Commission have over everything you see and the American mainstream media, and you will understand why they are trying so hard to attack what they deem to be fake news, which is really people like me, alternative media that cannot be controlled. So later this week, I'll release my report, and then the day after, I might do a live stream where I answer your questions, whoever wants to attend, and have an in-depth discussion about the state of media in the United States of America, the importance of grassroots journalism, and what we can do as an American people to fight off the military-industrial complex. I don't know how much longer I'll be on YouTube. Please follow me. I'm uploading these videos on Bitchute. If you make an account on Bitchute, it's an alternative to YouTube. It's growing. It allows all of these videos to be uploaded. So if YouTube takes me down, you can follow me there. And I'll be uploading all my past videos to that as well. I really appreciate your support. If you want to support me financially, help fight the military-industrial complex, go to www.patreon.com/FFRnews. As little as $1 monthly will help empower me to fight the powers that shouldn't be. I am Tom Anderson on Gab, TomFFRnews on Twitter, TomFFRnews on Minds, Tom Anderson on Steemit, TomFFRnews on Bitchute, as I mentioned, Tom Anderson on Facebook, and FFRnews on Facebook. Thank you so much. Never be afraid to speak truth to power.